All the songs you mention are kind of more acoustic-y songs, and it became very apparent to us as we were mixing the album that it was going to be a kind of heavier, rocky kind of album. And that's what we wanted it to be, because we've been playing lots of big rock festivals basically, and so we wanted it to be more of a rock album, and so that those more acoustic things ended up being B-sides basically. So, most of my favorite songs were B-sides when I was a kid. One of my favorite ever songs, Tales from the Riverbank by The Jam, that was the B-side of Town Called Malice, I think. But yeah, so I was always a massive fan of B-sides and EPs. So Pressure Drop was the B-side of English Civil War, The Clash. So there's loads of good B-sides. So yeah, no, I'm big fan of B-sides. I mean, it's a good record for sure, yeah. But it's also we were touring a lot, and we were playing a lot of very big festivals, and I think that just set it up nicely for when the album came out. We already had a massive tour booked, like European, all over Europe, and it's pretty much sold out by the time the album came out. So yeah, it was a lot of touring basically that really helped, boost it. And then having kind of hit singles like Just the One helped as well, which surprised us as much as anyone else, that we never intended that to be a single. That was just a little throwaway jam we were doing between takes, as it is on the album. And then it somehow became a Christmas single with Joe Strummer on it. I was the first one to shake his hand and let him in the door. Yeah, he was just a really nice guy. He kind of I didn't know this until quite recently, but Al Scott, who's the producer, I was talking to him about it, or I was listening to an interview with him or something, and Joe is a bit confused because he's a guitar player, and we'd offered him to come and play piano, and he went to Al Scott, the producer. He kind of goes, "What am I doing here? Why am I here?" And Al Scott said, "Because you're their hero." And that was it. That was good enough for him. He's like, "All right, I'll do it." But how he ended up getting him in the first place, excuse me, was because we needed a piano. We knew we needed a piano player, like barroom piano, for Just the One. And I remembered that on London Calling, there's a couple of credits. There's Piano, Piano, by Mick Jones, and then it's got Pianner, Painner, by Joe Strummer. So I was like, oh, well, he must be able to play a bit of boink, 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 and that's all we needed. And so as a joke, I said to one of the record company guys, they said, "Oh, who do you want to play piano?" And I went, "Joe Strummer," just as a joke, really. And next thing we know, he's turning up on the door. So that's my main recollection, and the other recollection is him trying to play it. He found it really hard because there's a difficult time signature in it, and he just kept missing it. He kept missing the change, and so you can actually hear him on the album on the single going "ah" when he misses the change in the middle of that instrumental. That's his voice going "ah." Someone told me, like, The Clash was the first single I ever bought was English Civil War. So, and The Clash was always my favourite band when I was a kid. I had like a C90 tape, and it had Give 'Em Enough Rope on one side, and it had Let There Be Rock by AC/DC on the other side. And I just played that thing to death, both. I love both of those bands of that. And I still do, still do love both of those albums. But The Clash was a very big influence on all of us in the Levellers, you know, just their whole attitude and their look and just the whole swagger and, you know, saying something that actually meant things to people. He wouldn't do Top of the Pops with us though. We did ask him to, and he said, no, I'm not doing Top of the Pops. Clash never did it. I'm not going to do it. But then he did end up doing it a bit later with Black Grape, I think. He ended up doing it with someone, but he wouldn't do it with us. It was like the resurgence of guitar music, wasn't it? So I was just talking to someone about it the other day. Yes, yesterday, literally. Yeah, there's just so many great bands at that time, great guitar, you know, rock bands. And the music scene was like really, really healthy. Yeah, it was good. It was great to be a part of because I got to see most of those bands, you know, festivals, and you know, either see them or meet them or both. And yeah, it's a good thing great thing to be a small part of. You know, for me, if you want to sum up the '90s in one song, it's "Live Forever." You know, it's got to be. Even though my favourite song is "This Is a Low" by Blur, you know, on Park Life is actually my favourite song from the era, but I think "Live Forever" kind of is the one that sums up the '90s in one go. Basically, when I did it, I'd spent about a month working on a completely different cover, and I'd gone down to Dartmoor with a friend of the band, taking photos of these like atmospheric shots of Dartmoor and standing stones and stuff like that in the mist. And then I came back and I put loads of effects on these pictures, and I thought that was going to be the front cover. But when I showed it to Mark, our singer, he went, "Oh, it looks like a fucking Clannad album cover." He goes, "That's shit." So I had to go back to the drawing board like really quickly and come up with something like really quickly. And so I said to him, which is what I always do before I do an album cover. I said, "Well, what do you want?" And everyone kind of says, "Oh, for Zeitgeist," everyone said, "I just, you know, listen to the songs and do the first thing that comes into your head and make it colourful so it stands out, you know, or do something that makes it stand out from everything else." And so the picture I did was just like the first thing that came into my head after listening to the rough mixes of the album. I mean, that artwork was lost, you know. My mum found it in her garage. You know, it was lost for years. And yeah, my mum found it, you know, not that long ago, you know, tucked away in her garage somewhere. And then we had it in our archive for ages. That was full fresh scanning straight from the original. That. Well, Men and Soul, I think, is one of my favourites. That's the last track on it, and I've got a few really. Like Hope Street, I really like because I remember writing the words for that one. And PC Keen is one of my favourite as well because that was an actual person, and we were dealing with the Criminal Justice Act at the time, and PC Keen was one of the police officers that we were dealing with, who was trying to enforce that Criminal Justice Act, and that song was our return to him, basically. In fact, I think that was the first song written for the album. I think because when I first met Mark to start writing sessions, he had already written PC Keen, if I remember rightly. We're going to start writing. We're going to start writing for a new album. You know, 'cause it's been a few years now since the last one. So that's the plan for next year, for early next year. And then we got festivals next year and stuff. And we're kind of, at the moment, we're working towards our fucking 40th anniversary, which is in 2028. So we're kind of working backwards from there, for some big shows then. But yeah, next year is mainly He's mainly writing, trying to write a new album, I think.